Hello and welcome to the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson. The Local Leaders Podcast provides a platform for successful business owners to share their stories, their experiences, their advice, and their ideas in order to help our listeners achieve more success in their business and in their lives. Get ready, another great show is coming up. Good afternoon to our listeners. This is Jeff Johnson, your host with the Local Leaders Podcast, and we welcome you back to our show today. And we're excited to bring to you all the way from Redding, California. We've got Andrew Wlodarczyk, and I probably did mess it up, but Andrew, and that's not even the right last name, but we've got Andrew here with us today from Woody's Brewing Company. And for those in Redding, I know you know of Rudy's down at 1257 Oregon Street, Redding, California. And for those of you who hadn't had an opportunity to get out there yet, please do so. But in the meantime, Andrew's kind enough to join us today. So welcome to the show, Andrew. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Yeah, we're thrilled to get you on, and we love, so many of us love beer. And so it's always fun to have an opportunity to break out of our norm just a little bit and talk to people who are in that business. So if you would, I just kind of want to turn it over to you and have you share the story of Woody's and kind of how it got started and what you guys are doing over there.
I'd love to. So this all started informally back in my younger years. My dad was a sales manager, started out in, obviously, I believe it was a delivery driver for Anheuser-Busch and Napa when I was, I think before I was born, actually in the early 80s, late 70s. And that's kind of where he started out, was with Anheuser-Busch. Just like anybody else moved their way up in the industry. He moved around a little bit to take different positions. He moved up to Oregon. We were in Portland, Gresham area for a while. And that's kind of where he got into the craft scene, craft beer. And I was pretty young at the time, but from there on out, I grew up in the industry, and I was at beer events with him on the weekends. I would help him build displays, all kinds of little different things that I would help him out with. So I was really pretty heavily raised in the industry. And as I got a little bit older, I imbibed a little bit on beer and started to understand, okay, maybe this beer isn't as bad tasting as I thought it was. And I developed that taste for beer that, once people try it a few times, they start to appreciate, okay, it's different than really any other alcoholic or non-alcoholic drink out there. And I developed that love for it. So at that point on, I would say probably when I was about 18, 19 is when I said, I want to start a brewery. And after talking to my dad about it, he said, well, that was my plan originally back in the younger years. And he got, too involved in, I wouldn't say too involved, but he got so involved in raising, a family and having a secure job that he just never made the step and never made the jump. But luckily for me, with his knowledge of the industry, I felt like I could be the one to facilitate it and start the process of it. And so then the conversations kind of developed from there. My uncle Pat, which is Scott, my father's younger brother, he had been home brewing for many, many years. I think he said since about 1984, I think he said was his first batch of homebrew. And he'd been brewing since, and he became very technical in it and started competing in different craft brewery, homebrew events and things of that nature. And got to the point where he got a brew system, built a little brewery in his backyard. He lives in Reno, Nevada, has a nice little piece of property out there, out in the outskirts, not in town, but just on the outside of town, and built a little brewery in his shed out back. And not just homebrew equipment, but semi-professional homebrew equipment. So from there on, he really fine-tuned his recipes and developed some awesome recipes. And I was in the middle of college, knowing that I wanted to get a business degree. I kind of, I shouldn't say floundered, but I, just like any young adult, was trying to figure out how I wanted to go about my future. I knew I wanted to have a brewery, but how was I going to do it? And I originally went into a viticulture program in Napa at Sonoma State. That was my plan, was to get my degree in that, and then I could segue into maybe craft beer or even, potentially stay in wine. But I knew it was the industry I wanted to be in. So in that time while I was going to school, I frequently would go over to Reno and brew with my uncle, and started to learn the brewing process and that kind of thing. And I realized, okay, it's kind of like cooking. Anybody can cook. Anybody can walk in and learn to cook, learn the process, put out good food. But the vast majority of it is going to be the back end on whether or not you're successful, and understanding the business and all the facets of the business, as you know, are the most important thing. And I realized that. So I decided I'm going to get my degree in business, and I pursued that. I ended up back here in the Redding area, or far northern California, and finished up my degree at Chico State in entrepreneurship, small business management, which there couldn't have been a better degree for me for this type of thing that I was doing, starting a craft brewery business from scratch, from the ground up, And so it was about 2010, 2011, where I said, okay, we're going to start doing this. So I started kind of formulating a feasibility study, and even it was perfect because through college, we were creating these feasibility studies and these business plans, and it gave me a one-up, because I said, well, I'm doing this for school, and this is also for my personal plans. And so it was two birds, one stone there. So it was really nice to be able to do that and go to school while completing that business plan at the same time. So so then from that point forward, we started all working together on what our plans were, what our roles were going to be. And I graduated college in 2010. And from there, we scrimped, and saved, and I worked extra hours, and I spent all my free time working on my business plan and my planning out how we were going to do it. And by 2014, we had finally found a location after looking at dozens and dozens of locations, and started to move forward. I mean, obviously there's a lot of other stuff involved in between that process of just getting the doors open, but it was in 2014 that we signed a lease in October for the location that we're in, and we've been growing since. So
that is that's pretty cool, and I love the fact that you knew it early on, and that's probably because you grew up in the business. It's something you knew, it's something you came to love and enjoy, and it's fantastic you could leverage your time at school to work on your own business. and really probably the whole time you're sitting in class, you're thinking, oh yeah, I can use this, and I can grab that and apply it to the business. And I think the schools are much better today than when I was in school, which was back in the 80s, mid to late 80s. When I went to college, there was basically one school of business, and they taught you accounting and a little bit of marketing and some statistics and a few things like that, but it's nothing like it is today, where you can get so hyper focused into like entrepreneurism, for example.
Right.
And it's a great head start. So congratulations on getting it up. So that means you've been running since, I don't know, about 7, 8 years now.
Yeah, we're approaching almost complete in 7 years here. We opened to the public January 1st of 2015. And so we're rolling up to 7 years here soon. Pretty exciting.
That is amazing, and you guys are really more than what I found was interesting. You're much more than just a brewery. As I kind of did a little bit of research and looked at the website and things, and tell me if I get it right, and then you can expand on it a little bit. But you're a brewery. You've got a pretty decent, pretty good menu of different food choices, which you don't often find in breweries. So that's different, and I like that. You got an event space, banquet room that you're running over there, and you're also in the distribution business.
Mhm.
So, yeah, tell me a
So-
little about kind of how all that evolved, and did you start with all that in mind, or have you grown into it?
So when we originally had started the idea or the concept of the brewery, it was going to be just a tap room and just mostly distribution. So we were looking to do cans and, kegs offsite and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We realized this area had no real brew pub. I mean, there were pubs, but there were no breweries that brewed on site and sold their product on site with a restaurant. So we shifted gears and said, let's go after that market. I love food. I've always been big into cooking. I love to eat, and so
Don't we all?
I said, yeah. Why not? Let's look at this. And so I can see now why a lot of professionals, bankers, different maybe investors and individuals were very hesitant in the beginning when we said this is our plan. We want a restaurant brewery. The restaurant brewery's tough, as you know. It's not easy. Everybody wants to do it. Everybody thinks they can do it better than somebody else because they know how to cook or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But it's a tough industry. So now I understand a lot more why they were so hesitant or reluctant to give us the green light and help us out to start the company. But I'm not the kind of person that stops. I've always had this internal drive that once I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. Even if it comes to the point of me saying, later on, I wish I didn't do it, which in the very beginning, I will tell you, there was that first year I was going, why did I do this? Why did I do this? But everybody kept saying, it's going to get better, it's going to get easier, and sure enough, it has. Not easy by any means. Obviously, the last year and a half was brutal, and still is. A lot of things I know that we're going to go into a little bit later. It's been very challenging, but so we went ahead and made that shift and started the restaurant. And I said, okay, well, I want to do something different. Let's incorporate some menu items that other places are not going to have, and put our little twist on it. Since I was young, I love tater tots, and my generation I found is I think that's when tater tots became popular, was my generation, because I've noticed with the market segment here, with our guests, the older generation doesn't tend to order our tater tots, but once they do, they find them to be very good, and they're hooked. We make our tater tots in-house. We have an individual that makes anywhere from 1,500 to 2,500 a day by hand, makes a mixture by hand, presses them by hand.
Wow.
And they're made fresh and fried. Then we add some different toppings to them. You can get them Polish style, which is a beer cheese sauce we make, kielbasa, and some sauerkraut with a little chive on top. And it's a plate of calories, but it's one of the best things that I could put out there, because it's not comparable to anything else, So
it sounds amazing.
Yeah, and so we have a few other topping choices for our tots, or you can eat them plain. So when you look at our menu, it's very eclectic, and I realized that I wanted to have something a little bit different and put our twist on it. Mm-hmm. So we've got all kinds of different things, from the handmade tots, a Polish style, to some lettuce cups, Asian style lettuce cups, to a po' boy that we use our beer batter that we make in-house. I mean, we kind of look at the gamut of pub items, and we just put a little bit of twist on them. I had this really good one that we had on the menu for a bit. It's not on there anymore. It just logistically, it was really tough to do, but it was a coconut prawns essentially, but it wasn't fried. It was like a shrimp cocktail style. And so we created, a little goblet that we would put the shrimp around, the cold shrimp. And then in the center was a coconut, like a sweet chili coconut cream sauce. And so you would dip into that, and then you would dip into the toasted coconut on the side. So you get that crunchy on the outside with that sweet chili coconut cream sauce on the inside. And it was awesome. So it was something a little different. Yeah. It was a hard sell because people didn't understand it. However, once they tried it, they loved it. But it was hard to really you go outside the box so far, people are very hesitant to try it. So you try not to go too far out so they're willing to try it. But once they did, they loved it. So yeah, we have all kinds of eclectic food. And we every month, except for this month, we run specials that kind of go with the season. So very seasonal specials, This month we've held off because we're having a lot of staffing issues and our staff is getting burnt out, I think, just like most in the restaurant industry right now. So we're really trying to dial things back and just focus on our core menu items. But this has been the first month in a long time that we haven't done any specials, but typically we do monthly specials that run for the entire month, each day of the week. So, yeah.
Well, that's interesting, and all of it sounds delicious. And that's the worst part about doing these podcasts, is we're talking to people who are making awesome food, and we get to look at it all day, and on the websites and things like that, and then talk to you about it. And it's hard not to want to leave here and go straight to find some of it. So hopefully you'll get the same reaction from the local market there, and they'll storm the store or the business. But that I found that to be very interesting, because you don't often see a true restaurant within the walls of a brew pub. And so that's a great job that you guys have done to differentiate yourselves. You mentioned you kind of started up as thinking, more tap room and distribution. And it looked like from the list of locations where your product can be found, is a pretty impressive list. How long has it taken you to develop that business?
So back in 2018, I believe, we purchased a canning system for our beer. And we knew that, we wanted to dabble in that, because that was really my dad's experience, was selling product or distributing product to restaurants and bars and retail locations. So we knew that was something that was going to be another phase of the brewery, and we weren't anywhere near capacity. And we decided, all right, we've got the ability to do it. Let's go and buy this canning machine. We purchased it and started rolling on it. Just like anything, it's a whole new sector of the business. And it took, there was a learning curve there. There was a big learning curve with the manufacturing, the canning, the product, and the distribution from here to the trade. It was something different. He has a lot of experience on the distribution side, but there's a whole nother, process behind the manufacturing side, and then getting it to the distributors or getting it to the retail location. So that was back in 2018. And we had some issues at the time. Our brewer at the time became very sick, and he had to leave the company because of his illness. So I had to step in and brew and take over that position until we figured out what was going to happen. So we kind of put all that on hold. And then we hired a new brewer about a year later. So in October of 2019, we hired a new brewer, and he took over. He's done a great job. And we have started canning again at that point, and started kind of pushing the product back out there. And then all of a sudden in 2020, COVID hit, so we pulled back again. But this time we decided, well, we're gonna shift, and we're gonna focus more on the cans, because we did a little bit of draft and keg sales, but we said, all right, well, we've got everything we need. Let's focus on the canning side and package side, and let's shift to that. And we started doing that back pretty much right around March. I mean, we were already planning on kind of making a big push the last spring, but COVID pushed us even more. So we went ahead and made that shift, and really picked up some accounts and started working from there. And we've done well. We've picked up a lot of accounts, and have kept growing and growing, and have been able to hire more individuals. And we're now, obviously the struggle is still in the restaurant because of the regulations changing here and there, and the uncertainty of the economic outlook, and just a lot of stuff that's going on. So we've kind of shifted. We're still pushing hard on that product out on the store shelves and things like that, but a lot of energy is going into the restaurant right now, unfortunately. So we can't push it as much, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so we've got 6 different styles of beer in cans at the moment. We do seasonal cans that come out maybe every 3 months or so. We'll do something special. Right now we're doing a special with Whiskey Town. It's a national park, and we're doing a fundraiser for the nonprofit that helps the restoration for that area that was part of the car fire. So that whole recreation area, not the whole, but most of the recreation area got burnt to pretty badly. And a lot of the trail systems that people were hiking and biking on through there got decimated. And we're working with a nonprofit to do a fundraiser beer to help put some money into that fund to help rebuild some of those trails and those different areas, recreational areas. So yeah, that's one of the beers that we're doing right now. It's called the Brandy Creek Blonde Ale, and that's going to be releasing, I think we decided in October. We were trying to get it going a little sooner, but it looks like it'll be about October when we release it. So
yeah, sounds awesome. Sounds really good. And the fact that you're able to give back to the community doesn't hurt. And I'm sure they're very appreciative of your efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the interesting thing to me is that, you basically got a business, but within that business, you've got 3 or 4 other businesses, and all of them, God bless you, all of them run differently and present unique challenges. Like you said, you basically went from being a brewery to being a manufacturer, when you bought your canning system. So, whenever our audience is thinking about expanding their business, and going kind of down a different trail, you got to think about, we might have we might learn a few new things along the way and have to fight some different challenges. And you guys have kind of been around the block when it comes to that. So with COVID, how did that kind of impact you? And did it hit all sectors of the business equally?
Yeah, obviously the restaurant, it was a very hard, and still is very hard thing to deal with right now. And, we shut down for a little while in the beginning to figure out how we were going to sustain and what we were going to do. And, did what all the different directors and departments said, we need to get over this hump of COVID. And so we shut down for a while and wasn't improving. So we decided to open up for takeout like a lot of other places were doing. And that was tough enough. A lot of our food really isn't food that you can take to go. It's not easily prepared in that manner. And so that was a big struggle. We did see a big increase in demand for packaged alcohol or packaged beer. So a lot of people were drinking this last year, and they still are, but it's definitely slowed down a bit. So with the restaurants closing on-site consumption, all the draft sales plummeted, and we had a lot of beer in our tanks and in our kegs going, oh my gosh, we're going to be sitting on this stuff. What do we do here? So we stopped brewing for about a month and a half. We didn't brew anything. We just went through what we went through here to get through it, so we didn't have any bad product. And then we, like I said, shifted and started canning our product. We saw there was definitely a big demand there for a while in packaged products. As we know, grocers did really well. Retail did really well during that certain time, still doing okay. But there was a big demand for alcohol last year.
Well, and it's fortuitous that you had that canning equipment at that point. What if that had not been there? And you couldn't rely on some additional revenue there.
It would have been a lot rougher of a year. Things work out for a reason, and having that equipment there and having the brewer that we had at the time ready to go, it was meant to be, and it helped us a lot. I don't know what we would have done. I think about that. I go, gosh, I know a lot of breweries, some other breweries in the Bay Area that they were focused on draft a lot, and they didn't have a canning machine. And then all of a sudden the demand for the canning machines shot up. So now you're looking at lead times of getting one of those pieces of equipment. Even if you have the money, the financing, the ability, you're looking at 6 months to get one. And that's not soon enough, So we were very thankful that we already had the equipment. So we knew some breweries that started to go under because they focused on draft, and they tried to make the shift when everybody else was, and they couldn't. And there are other companies out there that do canning, that come on site and offer their canning services, and they'll can your beer for you. But they were so booked up at that point, they weren't taking new clients. So there was a lot of different obstacles to overcome for some of those people. So we were really glad and thankful that we had that access to the equipment to shift that model a little bit. So
yeah, it kind of supports the need for diversification in your revenue streams to have some options, because you would have been sitting there like many others who didn't have those options to move your focus to in other places.
Yeah.
How many employees do you guys have within the operation?
So at our height, we're around, not including the owners, we're around 26. And including us, we're at about almost 30, including the owners.
Yeah,
so,
that's
fluctuations with
all right.
Time of year, of course. Yeah.
And I was asking because with one of the biggest challenges facing everyone today is staffing, and trying to of course you got to retain your people, and that's not always, for many companies, that's not an issue. They've been able to retain, but recruiting new people to fill holes and gaps and to grow has been really, really challenging. Have you guys had that issue as well?
Yeah. So, gosh, where do I start? I say it over and over, and the last year and a half has been, like a tornado, and we're going through staff, record turnover. They're burnt out because they're picking up pieces of other staff that just couldn't handle the stress anymore. So then they become more stressed, and then we're just trying to hire anybody that's looking for a job, and we're willing to train candidates into different positions that they would have never done before. So it's putting more stress on all the other staff to train people, which is already a lot of work. And it's this constant battle. It's like a boxing match with Mike Tyson that just seems like it doesn't end. You just keep getting hit from different ways, and you're trying to, move with the punches, but it's extremely hard. So we had to come to the point where we're offering hiring bonuses to staff to come back to work. We're offering bonuses to our staff just to stay here, through our busy months, which we're coming up on here in another few weeks. We'll be out of the summer, which is our busy months. And we offered bonuses to a lot of them just to keep them around, and even with those bonuses, we still lost half of them that were in the kitchen, and just because they're trying to pick up, all the slack that we don't have the staff for. So, and this last year when we were, during the times we were open, the demand was there. There was, there's a lot of extra income or extra money out there that people have in their bank accounts that they're spending. So there's the business was there. It's just, the staffing is the biggest issue. So we're actually meeting with one of our local state assembly people, Megan Dolly. We're meeting with her in 2 weeks to discuss these issues, because we're now closed 2 days a week, where we were only closed 1 day a week to deal with the staffing issues. We just got back to the point where we have enough staff. We think we can open that 6th day, but at this point we're only open 5 days a week because of that. And I've been on a few trips up to Oregon, kind of throughout the area, to see other restaurants and what they're doing. And there's a lot of them that aren't even open. They have signs on their door saying, we don't have enough staff to even open up. If you're interested in a job, please call this number and we'll give you a quick interview and see if you could be part of the team. So it makes me feel a lot better to know it's not just us, because for a long time I felt like, well, what are we doing wrong?
What's going on around here?
I've never had this issue, and we've had a pretty good work environment, and I'm still kind of flabbergasted at times, but we're maintaining. And the biggest thing is that we've learned during this time is to really, we only had a host on Friday, Saturday nights, and now we tend to have a host a little more frequently, and that helps slow down the turn times, which typically you want to speed up, right? You want to turn your tables as quick as you can, but we're trying to slow it down so we don't stress our staff out and burn them out, and so that has helped, as well as we started using a seating software, which is really nice. It's called, can I throw a name out there? I'm not
absolutely. I'm
not a name drop for the company, but it's called Waitlist. It's an application which has been really useful for us, where when they come in, we have a little tablet at the door that if we feel like, we're at our capacity, we can't service all these people that are coming in with the low staff levels we have. It's a waitlist app where we take their name, their contact number, their party size, we input it in the system, and we tell them, as soon as your table's ready, we'll send you a text or a phone call and let you know to come on in, so they can go wait in their car. They can maybe go, if it's going to be a 45-minute wait or what have you, they can run over to the store if there's something they need to get, whatever it may be. That will allow them to, we're able to contact them when we're ready on our terms, because we can't handle the flow that's coming in. So that application during our peak hours helped a lot, and really helped dial down the stress, so we could kind of pace it how we needed to.
Yeah, that's really good. And you gave us several different tips and pieces of advice of things you guys have done. And I'm just going to repeat it: hiring bonuses, retention bonuses. You're working with your state assembly, so you're working with government to try and impact the things that are keeping people away from work. You have had to close an additional day, so that's been back and forth a little bit. So that's a challenge. Slowing down turn times, which is unheard of. Although maybe in the beer business, maybe not, because we do like to hang out and drink.
Right.
So, but that's a great strategy to kind of fight down the workload. And the seating software. So those are very concrete examples for our listeners to take and to look into to see if that might work for you. And I appreciate you sharing that waitlist app, because you would, if you're a small restaurant, maybe you're an independent restaurant, one location kind of thing. Some of these costs of some of these softwares can be exorbitant, and you guys are that single one location kind of shop, and you found that it's worthwhile. So thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, and there's if I can add one more thing, Jeff.
Sure.
Obviously we also, with having the additional cost to employ, so the labor costs going up, we said, okay, where can we make this up? And what a lot of businesses here locally were talking about, because they're having to recruit and it's costing more, they're paying higher wages. So not only were we offering bonuses, but we gave automatic raises. And I said, well, we've got to make this up somewhere. We can't just keep taking these losses. So there's been some restaurants in the area that imposed, some sort of service fee that was a temporary fee that, almost like a gratuity, I guess, but they billed it as a gratuity, but it was essentially to show that this was going to our labor costs, that we're having to pay people more to retain them, to keep them here. And so we were kicking around that idea, but what we found was that was not received very well. We never implemented it, but that was not received very well by other places. And just knowing, if I went into a place and saw that service fee or that gratuity, you could call it, I wouldn't receive it very well. So we decided to just increase our pint prices by $1 per pint. And that was actually a really simple solution. And it put us at the higher end of some of the other local restaurants and bars for our pint prices. Mm-hmm. But people receive it much better than they did or potentially would have if we put on there some sort of gratuity or labor shortage fee, a fixed fee percentage that was going to go to those labor costs. Almost nobody even says anything, to be honest, that our pint prices have gone up. So that was something that I think helped a lot.
Well, that is a great point, because another way to that companies often implement, service fees, are on the credit card processing side, and that's a business I came from or am in, POS systems and processing, and the big thing in that industry today is cash discount program, where we're charging there's a surcharge attached to receive someone's debit or credit card. If you use debit or credit, you pay a 3.5% upcharge, which recovers a ton of money to the restaurant owner. Most consumers don't realize that you're spending $6, $7, $8, $1,500 a month in credit card processing fees. So you can get all that back and utilize it for wages and other ways, but it's not always received well. So, because it's an extra line item down there, tax and tip and now non-cash fee, and so it's the same kind of thing. So just going with the price increase is more palatable, I guess, for the majority of consumers, especially in this environment.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think we all understand that, and most of us, we try to tip better. We try to understand the situation that we're in, and we know everybody's overworked, so if people are just a little smarter, your customers, they can make a big difference too. And also to have patience, especially with your restaurants, realize that they do not have the people that they know they need to have to provide that same experience or level of service and experience that they're accustomed to giving you and they want to give you. And sometimes it's just difficult to do. So have just a little more patience and understanding.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we might have to go on and do one of those big national broadcasts, get the whole restaurant industry together to promote a commercial like that.
I know that's been the other big complaint with staff and management, was that a lot of people, there are a good amount of people that understand the frustrations, but people's frustrations have gotten to the point where they understood for so long and now they just don't understand. They go, well, I don't understand anymore.
All right, what's wrong? It's over. It's done. What's the problem?
They don't even, some of them don't care at this point. They're over caring. They don't want to care anymore. They've run out of empathy, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And I think from talking to people, I've got two perspectives, and I know maybe it's not as relevant, but a lot of people want to blame, the politics for people not coming to work, and that very well may be it. I'm not here to discuss politics, so I'm not going to get into that. But the other part of it is what you said earlier, is that a lot of people just took this whole COVID time to realize that maybe this industry was no longer right for them, that the work was hard and it's long hours, high stress, high demand on you physically to perform in the restaurant industry, to work in the industry. So I think the industry just lost people,
Absolutely.
In addition to the political environment that we're in, that some say, are rewarding people for not working. But I think the two together have just been tremendously impactful on the negative side for the restaurant business.
Yeah.
So if you and I could solve that, we could quit all our other jobs, right?
I think I could, but I don't think I want that. I don't want that limelight.
You don't want that responsibility. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Well, it's we've talked about a lot of different things, and you shared a lot of challenges and some good advice on how you guys overcame them, are working to overcome, because we're never fully out of the woods. We're always getting hit with something new, as you said, like being in a fight with Mike Tyson. There's something coming at you anytime, especially in the restaurant business, bar business, beer business, distribution business, whatever you're in. So thank you for sharing that. And as we kind of get toward wrapping this thing up, I wanted to ask you just from the business side of things. And I know you've got these different elements in the business, but I'm always interested in how you measure success for the business. I mean, all businesses have goals and objectives and all that kind of good stuff. But what are you looking at specifically to determine whether or not you're moving in the right direction each day?
Yeah, That's ever changing, for the longest time, there were, I would say, a few different things that we looked at. Reviews are great on some of those sites to hear the feedback of customers and what their experience was, but I feel like those are becoming less valuable as the years go on, because as you know, a lot of people that go to review you, you look at their reviews and they're just all negative. So those people are going to just give a negative review rather than a review for each location of what they thought. So yeah. It's not so valuable anymore. But what we found is in-house we have a customer review card that we used to submit with every purchase, and we wanted to hear your feedback. So we'd ask 1 through 5. What was your quality? What was the promptness? What was the taste? What was the beer? I think there were 6 or 7 kind of quick questions. What was your rating of 1 through 5 on these different categories? And then at the bottom, there was a comment section, what would you like to say? And there's a little drop box, or they could just leave it in their check presenter at the end of their experience. And we would take it at the end of the quarter. We would go through every single one of them, and we would see where we're at. There's a date on there that would help us identify, okay, that week was a bad week because we had 2 people out sick, and what was it that was causing the frustrations this time. So it really helped us kind of dictate where we're not doing well with the guests. Are they coming back? Is this something that is going to deter them from coming back? Is it that serious? Or was it an off night? Whatever the case was, it helps us identify what those issues were and how to resolve them. So we were doing that up until the last year, when we weren't allowed to put out check presenters or pens along those different things. So
along with everything else,
kind of put a wrench in it for us. And but we're going to get back to doing that here soon, because that was a really good way to help guide us. Turnover is another big thing. We used to use turnover percentages or numbers as a way to determine how good we were training our staff, how well we were training them, and how happy they were, how stressed they were. So turnover was a big thing. Covers, obviously, using how many covers in any given period. And then, of course, like any restaurant owner knows, prime cost. Prime cost, if you don't know your prime cost, you might as well not even be doing business, because you have no idea what your margin is and how well you're doing on your labor percentages and your food costs. And without those things, you really can't guide your business. Okay, why aren't we making money? We're in the red. Why are we in the red? Well, you're in the red. You're not tracking anything. That's why you're in the red. You don't know where you're going wrong. So we do a prime cost. We do it probably every other week. I would like to do it every week, but it's a lot to ask right now. But we do it usually every other week, and it gives us a good idea of where our labor's at, where our food costs are at, and helps us steer in the right direction. And then a big thing for us is every year there's a best of the North State, they call it, which is different categories, restaurants, bars. Different service companies get voted for who's the best in those categories. And the last 4 years, I believe it's been the last 4 years, we've gotten voted best of the North State in brewery, burger, beer, what else? A couple other categories. And that helps also, guide us as to whether we're doing the right or good job or not. So.
Well, that's awesome. I appreciate that. And a couple of the thing that jumps out to me is the old school use of the review cards, because you don't often see that anymore with the Google reviews and Facebook reviews,
right,
and all those things. But you are absolutely right. The review component that's out there today, you never can tell, what you got and who they are and what their underlying, if they have underlying reasons to negatively review you, and it's a challenge to deal with. But the in-house review cards,
that's what's interesting too, is I don't, it may sound pompous, but I've gotten to the point now where I've read so many reviews online and in person that I can identify a review online when it usually, like you said, has an alternative or ulterior motive.
Ulterior, that's the word I was looking for.
It wasn't necessarily the experience. Maybe it was something political, like, there was one on our page, it was about the fact that I had a mask on and it fell below my nose, and so the person wanted to go off on a political tirade, and their experience wasn't bad. It was just the fact that they wanted to, voice their opinion politically and give us a bad review because she felt that I wasn't being safe enough, or whatever the case may have been, but I can start to identify these things, these reviews, and it happens a lot. Like you said, is that a lot of them, there's something else going on. It wasn't necessarily the experience. Maybe there's a person they know and they didn't like the server there and they had a personal beef with them, so they gave the restaurant a bad review, So yeah, you're exactly right on that. And those physical cards, as costly and time consuming they may be to go through, they're really invaluable. I mean, we get thousands of them, which gives us a better piece of the pie, or of the guest reviews than a Yelp review would. We get a lot more feedback. So
yeah, well, that's fantastic, and I think it's a great idea. And for people who've abandoned that years ago, maybe it's time to pull it back out. Because it used to be commonplace, in a large majority of restaurants, bars, wherever you might go, but you don't see it very often today. And of course, since COVID, you don't see anything. You don't see salt shakers, and shakers and menus and everything else either. So
luckily, we've been able to see faces the last couple months.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, I've actually kept you longer than I meant to, but it's been a pleasure talking with you and gaining some insight. Any parting words or things you wanted to mention that we haven't talked about?
One last thing that I found was really big, and you kind of touched on it before, was the diversification. I saw how there's a couple restaurants in the area. One, for instance, is a chicken place, and all they really do is focus on chicken, which is awesome. But then when you have all these shortages on these food products because of COVID, or even in other scenarios that there was, maybe there was an issue with the manufacturing or the processing facilities of chicken factories, and now chicken prices shot up, or you couldn't even get chicken. I know some of them that they couldn't even get their chicken. I'm thinking, what do you do when you can't even get chicken, and that's what your whole menu is based around? So I think the one thing that I would say is, which I think we hit pretty hard here, was the diversification. Just like they say in investing, you should do that with your menu, and kind of your business strategy is diversify, because you never know what's going to hit next and how you need to shift your business model.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that's a great piece of advice for any of our listeners who are in business today and wondering what to do next. Maybe look at some complementary products or solutions that you can implement that will help you do that diversification, help you reach a new target market, or piece of the consumer revenue that's out there to be spent. You got to get creative these days. You can't just rely on the same old stuff. So again, we thank you so much, Andrew, for being here today. And again, for our listeners, this is Andrew from Woody's Brewing Company over in Redding, California. They're still dealing with they don't have the fires there directly, but they've got really bad smoke and smog and all that in the atmosphere. So everybody keep their prayers going for all of our friends over in California and in those neighboring states that are being impacted by the fires. And again, we appreciate you being on. If you haven't been to Woody's and you're near or in Redding, get down there and enjoy some time with these guys. Great talking with you today, Andrew. Thank you again.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
And to our audience, again, I'm Jeff Johnson with the Local Leaders Podcast. We appreciate you coming on today and listening, and hope that you'll come back for our next episode. Thank you.